Okay, so say your thing again.
Okay. So children, I'm not sure how much you missed, but Loisoya and Abigail and Andrew, thank you so much for helping us with our lesson today. You'll see that the lesson today will be just like, will be helped by the verses that you just quoted for us. That was great memorization. Keep it up. I'm going to give you verses in the future and have you do more of that for us. All right, thanks.
Is English their first language?
No, English is not their first language.
Really?
Their first language is Manipur, and now they're learning, and we can always pray for them too. They're learning Hindi because of the place where they are right now, and so that's a tough one. So they're learning Hindi. They speak Manipuri, and they speak their Naga language as well. They always speak multiple languages. It's incredible. So folks, so Home and Jenny, so far we're up at 2419 for your auction. So thanks, Home, for that little prayer. All right, that's great. All right. So now we're going to go back to the book of Job. So maybe you can get that light for me. All right, back to the book of Job. And so we're in chapter 2. We ended last week where Job lost everything. He lost his children. He lost his property. He lost everything, and he tore his clothes, he poured dust over his head, and he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And he says, through the scripture in chapter 1 ends with, through all this, Job did not sin, nor did he blame God. And so that's why Job is our example. So where we are in the story so far, we have this. We have the intro to the man Job. That was the first 6 verses that talked about him being a rich and wealthy man. Then we have the heavenly challenge. And then we saw that Job's calamities that occurred one after the other, where he lost his flocks, and he lost his property, and he lost his kids. And this week, we're going to deal with Satan's second accusation. As if that wasn't bad enough, Job was victorious in this round 1 of losing things. Every good gift comes from above. I love that verse because it is so applicable to what we deal with. It's easy for us to blame God about the bad things. We accept from him all the good things, but we blame him for the bad things. And what Job is trying to teach us is that we accept from God everything that we get. All right? So let's move on here. All right, how about this? Review questions for this last section, all right? Where did Job live? What country was that? The land of Uz. We don't know where Uz was, but it was somewhere in the land of Edom. How is Job described regarding his character? He's blameless, he's upright, one who feared God, he shunned evil. How many children did he have? 10 kids, 7 sons and 3 daughters. All right, what were his possessions? He had 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels. What was the important thing about camels? Camels were the animal of what? Transit. They were the animals of trade in that day. So that meant this guy was a very wealthy man. And also was pointed out by one of the things I listened to this week. Oh, gosh, I forgot to bring them. 3,000 camels. Camel's milk was an incredible delicacy in that time. 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys. Donkey's milk also was a major hit back then, and he had a very large household. What did Job do whenever his sons would throw a party? He would sanctify them and offer burnt offerings. He was a man that was concerned about his kids. What was Satan's accusation to God concerning Job? The point was, Satan wanted to tell Job, well, Job only fears you because you're so good to him and you give him everything and you protect him. And so this week, Satan's initial challenge to God was, if you destroy what Job has, he'll curse God to his face. And so what did God allow Satan to do? Allowed him to destroy all that Job had, but not to lay a hand upon his person. And then what was Job's reaction to his great loss? He did this. He tore his robe, he shaved his head, he fell to the ground and worshiped God. Naked came I from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so the lesson, the question for us is, can we do this when hard times come into our life? This is what we're learning to deal with. Ariane, well, it's great to see you. You came. Some of you don't know Ariane. Ariane is Cynthia, so is daughter. And when did you slip in?
Just a moment now.
Just a moment ago? Okay, great. Well,
Before the kids started speaking.
oh,
That was amazing.
that was great. Yeah, Cynthia has moved to Tennessee, and Ariane works for me now and then, and so she has to go down to San Diego sometimes, and so she thought she'd like to drop by and see what we're all about here in Barnabas Group. So anyway, thanks for coming. That's great. What a surprise to see your face there. You know, it's two really attractive people here, Ariane and Fahrenheit, both just really attractive people here. Or we go to absolute 100 to absolute 0. I'm not really sure. Will you ever come back, Kelvin? You got to come back again. It's great to have you.
Never be back again.
Hey, I wanted to talk about this. This is the idea that the book of Job is something where we need to learn about improper theologies. We have talked about replacement theology. How many of you agree with replacement theology? I'm so glad nobody raised their hand. That would have been so great to nail somebody. No, we don't believe in replacement theology, and that's the idea that Israel has been replaced by the church, and that the promises that were given for those who bless Israel will be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed. There are many who teach in a replacement theology that, well, that is not applicable anymore. God has thrown away the Jews forever, and now God is only concerned with the church. And that's not true. There are so many prophecies that deal with Israel. That's why we're concerned about what the Teplinskis are doing. That's why we're concerned about what's going on in Israel. That's why we keep our eyes on Israel to see what is happening, and it's what tells us that the Lord's return is near. So replacement theology is something that we discard, hopefully. At least we present that argument here in class. Well, here's another theology that I want you to be wary of, and that's called the theology of retribution. All right? The theology of retribution. That's this idea, that righteousness is rewarded with blessings, and evil is punished with curses. You know? See, but that is taught. That is taught so much. A corollary is that if a man is suffering, well then obviously if you're suffering, then you've done evil. And the other corollary is a man who is prospering is righteous. Both of these are incredibly dangerous ideas. Statement of the principle is this in Job 4, 7, and 8. Remember, who that was ever, I mean, this is one of the arguments given to Job. Who that was ever innocent perished. This is one of the arguments that Eliphaz, I think the first guy, he's saying, hey, if you're innocent, you don't perish. Well, it's a dumb argument anyway, because everybody dies. Yeah. Or where were the upright cut off? As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. This is what so many people think. Now, should you do good? Yes. Should you not do evil? Absolutely, you should not do evil. But the point is that God is going to work in your life in His way. And if you can't, you know something, there are people out there who are what Karen and I call recipe people. In other words, they have a recipe for life, they have a recipe for the way you should raise your children, and if you follow the recipe, everything will go just perfect. Well, guess what? How many has that worked for you, where everything has gone just perfect? If you can raise your hand, you should be coming up here and teaching us how to do it. Because that's not the way it works, all right? There isn't a recipe. God doesn't have one recipe with life. Everyone, that's amazing, isn't it, that there are so many people here, and they all have a different story. God is incredible. Let me tell you how incredible God is. I told you I was going to tell you this last week. And I want you to think about this idea. It has just been discovered, and in fact, if you're on the news at all and you read any of the science stuff, it talks about the number of stars in the known universe. Remember that number? What was that number? Can you remember? 300 sextillion stars. And the reason that that is like a factor of 20 greater than what they had thought before. And the reason that they had to modify their calculations was because they thought that our galaxy was typical with the number of red stars, and the number of red stars had a correspondence to how many other stars there were. And they thought, and then they looked at other galaxies and they realized that the Milky Way is not typical. As a matter of fact, there are many more red stars in all these other galaxies, and as a result, the number of known stars in the universe is over 300 sextillion. Now I just want you to be aware of this number, because God created them all. with the speaking of a word, he created them all.